Thanks for the opportunity to present some of our ideas to you today, and in particular our proposal that by adopting systems thinking we can reimagine the human habitat. And yes, this is big picture thinking, so please bear with me. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm recording this presentation on the lands of the Darug peoples and wish to acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. I also wish to acknowledge the practical relevance of Indigenous wisdom to the concepts of living collaboratively, caring for the land and regenerating ecological systems, and also that I have drawn directly from these perspectives in my work. In this presentation, I'll briefly describe my background in housing, then I'll show how systems thinking can be applied to collective housing and outline the Circular Economy Villages development model, which is a blueprint for a new approach to greenfield land development. I'll talk about what is already happening and how our work seeks to bridge the gap between community-led initiatives like eco-villages and developer-led projects. And finally, I'll talk about implementation, both the planning policy and financial frameworks we have developed and how we collaborate with local government. My name is Stephen Liaros and I'm a strategic town planner. For the past 25 years, since I pioneered voluntary planning agreements in New South Wales, my main area of work and interest has been in planning for the public infrastructure that's needed for new housing developments. By 2010, it became clear to me that the scope and scale of infrastructure the public expected far exceeded what we were willing to pay for. By this I mean that local councils couldn't afford to pay for all the new infrastructure. A cap was introduced to limit how much developers had to pay, and the New South Wales state government couldn't or wouldn't pay for it either. The challenges of delivering adequate, high-quality infrastructure remain to this day. The consequence of the current system is that greenfield land development delivers inadequate public infrastructure, while at the same time we build the largest and least affordable homes in the world. My key point here is that our spending on the private domain far exceeds spending on the public domain, and this is the first way to think in systems. Housing is embedded within an ecosystem of public or shared infrastructure, facilities and services. Housing can't be addressed in isolation. It is part of a public-private system. And the housing crisis is just one of many crises we are collectively experiencing. Personally, I feel that the 2019-2020 bushfires on the east coast of Australia were an environmental tipping point. Since these unprecedented bushfires, we've had unusually high rainfall and flooding. We've seen political upheaval and the rise of authoritarianism. The full impacts of AI are yet to fully play out. And of course, we had the pandemic. All of these reflect damage to the public interest, the social, political and environmental domains caused by the excessive growth of private interests. The pandemic highlighted the problems with global supply chains and the importance of local community, local resilience and connection to food. Importantly, people started to ask questions like, what's important in life? Where do I want to live? And where, how, with whom and on what do I want to work? As a result of our response to the pandemic, many people started working from home. Some moved to regional towns. This changed the expectations of strategic planners about what the future looks like. So we need to fundamentally rethink how we plan for that future, not just regarding housing, but its relationship to work and how we organise our cities. And this is what I mean by systems thinking. I started talking about housing and veered off into bushfires, flooding, political unrest, AI and the pandemic. Rather than trying to address these in isolation, we should see them as symptoms of a systemic crisis. And then we can see the various solutions as elements of a new system. So the question becomes, how do we put these elements together in one place? Renewable energy, co-living opportunities, regenerative agriculture, water-sensitive urban design, walkable neighbourhoods, car sharing and all the rest, to create a new system for living, a new kind of human habitat. The way we think about it is to imagine a village or neighbourhood as an integrated system. When we talk about collective housing, we are prone to prioritise the housing, that's the private domain. And therefore the collective things, the shared infrastructure, the public domain, is secondary. Yet all the basic physiological needs are essential. In a system, all the elements are of equal importance. The objective is to efficiently integrate food, water, energy, transport, communication with the private housing and shared spaces. And learning from First Nations, we should build up the capacity of the land around the built environment so that it can provide us with the food, water and energy that we need. When we care for the country that we live on, it will care for us. For those of you who are familiar with the field of regenerative development, we need to move away from extractive systems of production, but also beyond sustainability and start thinking in terms of creating holistic living systems, a village as a living system. Conceptually, therefore, these regenerative villages would have an energy microgrid that powers homes, workplaces, and shared electric vehicles. Renewable energy would also be used to pump water uphill to create a managed water cycle around the neighbourhood with constructed reservoirs, creek lines and wetlands. An abundance of water would support an abundant local food system. Food waste would be used to improve soils but can also be used to generate energy, and the built environment could be optimally located and designed to minimise energy demand. All the parts of the system would be interconnected and mutually supportive. Spatially, our initial plan is to create a village-scale system for 200 people on 40 hectares of land. The built environment would be compact to maintain the rural character. The population of future villages may be bigger or smaller, but we have adopted the outer limit of the Dunbar number as a starting point. The critical issue here is not what the number is, but that we choose a population size. This allows us to determine the demand for food, water, energy and housing. Then we can calculate the scale of the infrastructure needed so that supply meets demand. A central reason for developing these design principles for a regenerative village is that our ambition is not to build one village, but to create a process for a pipeline of projects, and therefore a network of villages in regional areas. Of course, each village would be tailored to its local conditions, geography, climate, ecology, and existing development pattern, but the planning policy framework can be standardised. This is necessary to create an efficient pathway to development approval and more efficient financing options. As many of you would know, there is already a lot happening in this space. There are many community-led initiatives, as well as various approaches to developing sustainable neighbourhoods by more mainstream developers. We're not looking to reinvent the wheel. Our extensive research has drawn on ideas from many different housing development models to create the concept of what we are calling a circular economy village. And one question for you to think about here is, can we design our housing to look more like a holiday resort, a really attractive environment with smaller private spaces, but lots of shared spaces, facilities, assets, services and activities? Now, the perception that some people have of eco-villages is that they represent a return to a frugal, agrarian, pre-industrial lifestyle. We're not proposing a frugal lifestyle. We do think it's important to simplify life, but we're planning for abundance. And we're not talking about going back in time, but asking what is the next evolution of the human habitat. Another point of difference is that we are not talking about a single project, but a replicable process that can create a network of villages. As for the points of difference with mainstream development, we do not propose to subdivide the village into private and public lots. Instead, the land, buildings and infrastructure would be collectively owned by the residents through a community land trust. The nature-enhancing infrastructure is then not constrained by property boundaries and can be designed to suit the geography of the site. In terms of implementation, we are working towards a pilot project. We have developed a draft planning policy framework with Bellingen Shire Council in 2022, and this was designed to be readily transplanted to other regional local government areas. We have also prepared a general financing strategy that needs to be refined into a business plan. We hope this year to identify a suitable site and start working on the design of the first circular economy village. In the following slides, I'll provide more detail about the draft planning policy framework that we developed. All policy must flow from a strategy. So we started by working with the council and the community in Bellingen when they were developing their housing strategy. And they agreed to incorporate the action that you can see on the screen to support the development of a pilot project. The ambition was to create a framework that could be transferred into mainstream housing processes in the future. This allowed us to access some funding from the New South Wales State Government to develop the policy framework, which included all these elements: a couple of definitions, a locality planning process to work out where this form of development should be permissible, and provisions that would make it permissible in those locations. We created a comprehensive set of development controls and a process for planning, designing and funding the necessary supporting infrastructure. Finally, we also looked at implications for other things like council rates, water supply charges, sewerage and waste levies. All of this information is on Council's website, but you can also access it from the project status page of our website, polisplan.com.au. The planning policy can be quite technical, but what I think most of you might be interested in is the locality planning process. Our first principle is that these villages should be located adjacent to or near existing towns or villages, so as to share infrastructure and facilities, increase the economic capacity, and improve local resilience of the existing community. Secondly, we'd map the existing constraints like bushfire and flood-prone land. In this example, we also avoided state-significant farmland, which left us just 2 small precincts near the township of Bellingen. Applying this approach to the eastern part of the Shire, the mapping identified 9 possible sites, and this was narrowed down to 6 after site inspections and ground truthing. Recognising the challenges of working in such a constrained location, we commenced discussions with the adjoining council to the west, Armidale Regional Council, who were, in 2024, also developing their housing strategy. They have a plan to grow the population by 20,000 people, and there is a lot of underutilised farmland that would be very suitable. Our discussions with Armidale led them to include an action in their housing strategy that reads, explore opportunities for the development of new greenfield settlements based on circular economy and regenerative principles with integrated infrastructure ecosystems located near or adjoining existing towns and villages. This is a much more open-ended action, not limited to a single pilot project. The landscape character of the New England area lends itself to a network of villages potentially along the major transport corridors shown here. We are continuing to identify other suitable locations and supportive councils to create as many opportunities as possible. There is much more work to be done, of course, but I'll leave it there. You can find more information about the project to develop a network of circular economy villages at our website polisplan.com.au. In 2024, a group of 5 of us established SEVCO, the Circular Economy Villages Cooperative, to start building a network of collaborators who together would realise the broader vision of communities where both people and nature thrive. Have a look at our short promotional video, and thank you for your time.
As our population grows, there is a need to deliver better housing solutions in places connected to nature, outside of the capital cities. Australia has a unique opportunity to lead the world in creating new kinds of communities where people and nature can thrive together. There is a movement building around smart, regenerative villages, incorporating First Nations knowledge and connection to country, with regenerative and circular economy principles, water-sensitive urban design, nature-based infrastructure, energy-positive communities, with agriculture and food security. Despite massive opportunities, not enough is being done to bring these ideas together. At SEVCO, we are creating a unique regional planning and land development model. We are taking the lead on planning policy, process, and advocacy. But we cannot do it alone. If you would like to join us at the forefront of a new movement in regional development, please do get in touch. We invite you to join us on the Net Positive journey.